Hi guys, today in class we will be talking about function versus not a function. So yes, it can either be a function or no, it could not be a function. Okay, and the main thing we want to remember is that x cannot repeat. No matter what your problem looks like, right? No matter if it's a table, no matter if you have ordered pairs, no matter if you have what we call a mapping diagram or a graph, x cannot repeat in order for it to be a function. Okay, so our learning target for today is I can determine function versus not a function from tables, graphs, mapping diagrams, and ordered pairs. Okay, and the way we're going to do that is by first identifying what our x's are, and I'll either have you label them, circle them, or highlight them, right? Just so we know which ones are our x's, which ones are our y's, and then we can go from there. Okay, you're going to compare those x's and you're going to look for repeats. Okay, if x is repeating, then like I said, it is not a function. Okay, if x does not repeat, then yes, we have a function. Okay. Okay, on this slide, you are able to draw. Okay, I wanted us to be reminded of what each of these were called, each of these representations. We call them a representation depending on how the information is represented to us. Okay, so one of them is called ordered pairs. Think pair has to be 2, right? Remember, ordered pairs look like x comma y. So you can go ahead and draw a line from your ordered pairs to the word, right? Your little ordered pairs cloud. Okay, tables. We should remember what tables look like. We should remember what a graph is. The new one that we may not know is this mapping diagram. Kind of looks like 2 lungs, actually, and they're connected by veins, right? So this would be our mapping diagram. Okay, go ahead and draw lines from the name to the representation. You can move on to the next slide. Okay, so now on this slide, you are labeling where your x is. Okay, so from a table, remember x is on the left-hand side. So go ahead and draw an x on the left-hand side. You could even circle those values. That is your x side. On a graph, label your x-axis, right? You can highlight that x-axis, and we're going to learn something called a vertical line test. Okay. On the mapping, draw an X above the left-hand side. You can circle those numbers if you'd like. Maybe highlight each of the different numbers on the X side. And then with an ordered pair, label which one is your X. You can underline it, you can circle it. We need to know where to find the X on each of these representations. Okay, so we are going to find our x's, right? We're going to use our checklist to help us determine whether this one is a function or not a function. We are given tables, right? And we have 2 different types of tables. One is vertical, standing up and down. The other is horizontal, and it looks like it's laying sideways, right? So our first step, example 1, we're going to identify our x's. So on yours, you should be able to draw. You can either circle the numbers on the x or highlight them, okay? We're going to compare those x's, right? We're going to be looking for repeats, right? So I have -2, -2, 0, 1, and 3. If I notice -2 and -2 repeat, so example 1 is not a function, okay? Or we call it a non-function. Okay, example 2, we're going to do the same process. Highlight or circle our x's. We're going to check for repeats. -2, 0, -2, 7, -8. If we notice -2 and -2 repeat, right? So this one is also not a function. Okay, next slide. These are ordered pairs now. See how we're just given a list of ordered pairs? We still have to compare the x's, right? So So we've got to identify those first. So in example 1, what I'd like you to do is label each of them XY, 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 XY. Then you can go back and either underline, circle, or highlight only the X's. There's my X, 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 and X, right? So we're going to compare those. -2 is the same as -2. I already have a repeat right there, so I know that this one is not a function. Okay, example 2. Label again, XY, 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 right? Circle, underline, or highlight only the X's. So 2, 5, and 10. Because none of those X's are the same, they are not repeating, right? That means this one, yes, is a function. Okay, moving on to our next slide. This is a mapping diagram. Okay, so remember again, identify which side is your X, right? The left side is our X's. Okay, we can either circle, highlight, identify which numbers are X values. Okay, so example 1, the way we figure out whether a mapping diagram is a function or not is we have to look at each X, right? So I have 1, 2, 3, 4 different X's. Okay, notice how there are arrows coming from each of the X's, right? They're pointing to a number on the Y side. Okay, if one of these numbers on the X side, right? If one of those numbers has 2 lines coming from it, right? That means that it's pointing to 2 different numbers, then that means it is not a function. Okay? In this case, 5 is only going to 2, 7 is only going to 0, 8 is only going to 1, and 10 is only going to 2. So that means none of my x's are repeating, and yes, example 1 is a function. Okay? If we look at example 2, okay, we have to identify our x's, the numbers on the left, right? And we have to look at each x individually, right? So -8 only has one arrow, it's going to 7. -1 only has one arrow, it's going to 9. 0 has one arrow, it's going to 9. But let's look at 15. 15 has 2 arrows. One of the arrows is going to 7, the other arrow is going to 9. So this would be an example of a non-function. Okay. Okay, so on this slide, you should be able to drag your line from side to side. Okay, we're going to do what is called a vertical line test. So if you take your line and you hover it over your graph, right? We have a graph. The arrow that is drawn on it, right? The curve that's drawn on it, that's our function. So that's the one that we're checking if it passes the vertical line test or not. Okay, that purple line that you have on your screen is what would be our vertical line test that we're initiating. Okay, so if you have that vertical line and it's on your curve, notice how your black curve touches your vertical line in more than one place. So it touches at the top of the curve and at the bottom of the curve. If it touches more than one time on that purple line, then it is not a function. Okay, so let's look at example 2. If we drag that purple line anywhere on my curve or my line, right, then it will only touch the purple line one time. Okay, so this is the one that would be a function, right? Because you can drag it anywhere along the x-axis and it would pass the vertical line test. Okay, on this one, you should be able to drag an icon. Okay, you are putting it on the one graph that does not belong. So think about what we did on the slide before this, right? The vertical line test. if your vertical line touches the curve or what the picture, right? If it touches it more than one time, then it is not a function because that means that your x is repeating in that place. Okay? Here are a list of ordered pairs, right? You're dragging your icon to the one that does not belong. So the one that is either a function or not a function compared to what the other ones are. Okay? And now you have some practice that you can work on. If you click on the link, it will take you to a website where you are practicing whether you're given a function or not a function with the different representations.